What is going on YouTube? It is your boy Coach Shark. We're back with another video. This is the podcast episode of the recap of the Indianapolis Colts losing to the Houston Texans in Indianapolis. Before I move forward, I would like to appreciate you guys for all the support. Everyone that tuned in during the live stream, 1,000 people in there, appreciate all the support. Follow us on all platforms. Follow me as well. Just look up the Culture Shock or Culture Shock podcast on Spotify, Apple. You can find us on Twitch. Check out the website, which is thebluestable.com. But let's go ahead and hop into this game. So the Colts lose their first game at home. It's been a rough patch over a few weeks for the Indianapolis Colts because they just lost their vision of what they wanted to do. Their goal, their whole mindset has shifted to what looks like hasn't been something we haven't seen all season. This was one of the highest scoring offenses in the league all year consistently. Probably still is, but they probably lost that motive. They averaged about 30 points a game, and they were going up against the number one defense in the league in the Houston Texans, and it showed this week, even though we knew it was going to be the outcome of the scenario just due to the severity of the injury with Daniel Jones with his fibula injury. But we knew what was coming. We knew how slow the offense was going to look. We knew how dummy down the offense was going to look. I mean, I can't hand count how many instances I knew the play was going to happen before it happened. Like an inside run or a pass to Josh Downs over the middle of the field. And it's so vanilla of the offense. It's something that we're not used to seeing from the Indianapolis Colts, especially the last few weeks. But earlier in the year, their offense was so dynamic and so creative. But now it gets to a point, as you're just watching from a fan, it looks like there's so many players that can get involved, but there's just so little time. There's only one football that can go around, and there's so many players that can get involved that it just doesn't. In the process of this game, we wind up losing Sauce Gardner with a calf strain, so that might sideline him for a few weeks. And this was another week with no DeForest Buckner, and it wound up showing his rear end again. We just missed a lot of key players this week. Due to that, the defense did all they could. Honestly, they held the Texans for under 25 points. The referees had a lot to do with the speculation of this game that a lot of people are questioning. The officiating in this game, which was looking like it was rigged at a certain point. I know a lot of fans, especially Colts fans, were like, "Oh, the NFL wants the Texans in the playoffs. Just look at the game. They gave them an extra point of a field goal that wasn't even close of going in. Then they wind up walking them down the field and not calling the flag that was supposed to be called on the delay of game." So a lot of those things, even though a lot of fans are like, "Oh, the Colts still had a chance to win this despite the situation with the refs." But a lot of these flags that should have been called changes the game tremendously. It shifts the game. And a lot of people don't get that just of that situation. That's why so many people get mad at officiating, because the refs control the narrative of the game depending on the call. Week in and week out, the refs control the game depending on the call. So it can shift the game in so much. Players get frustrated and just, can possibly crash out the game and just not care anymore. Some people can get so nonchalant and start looking for flags, and it just mentally focus. It takes them out the game. So I think the refs had a big part to do with this game, how the outcome looked. Even like I said, the extra point, if they didn't count that for the Texans, the game would have been tied. We possibly could have been going to overtime, or it could have put more time on the clock for the Texans to try to actually make a play instead of milking it. Besides that situation, the whole tush push scenario with the Texans, oh my gosh, Stover, so many tush push calls, but the Colts actually wound up stopping it, which was good. The defense did all they could. Like I said, the offense at the end of the day, the first half of the offense had a lot to do with why the game went this way. The offense for the Colts just could not figure it out in the first half. The Colts figured it out in the second half. I mean, it wasn't perfect, but I think anybody with two sets of eyes or that was watching the game could have realized, hey, you might want to try to force feed Alec Pierce here. I think he has a mismatch. Or, hey, Jonathan Taylor needs to be involved a little bit more if the pass game isn't working. Just a few things. I mentioned on the live stream in the game, I said, I don't remember the last time I seen Quentin Nelson actually be a lead blocker in one of Jonathan Taylor runs in almost 3 weeks. It's been that long. I haven't seen a good Quentin Nelson lead block run leads into a Jonathan Taylor touchdown. And Jonathan Taylor actually had a few spurts in the second half when it looked like he gave the offense life. But again, they just went away from him. They have this whole narrative of trying to get Daniel Jones to either lead the team to victory or just work through the pass game. I know they say they run to win, which is the motive, but Jonathan Taylor is your lead MVP runner in the league, one of the best runners in the league, if not the best, and you just put him on the shelf so many drives that it just looks like there's no balance to the offense, obviously. It's one drive when they're just consistently running the ball, or there's one drive where they're just consistently passing the ball. There's not a lot of mixture or creativity in the offense. Tyler Warren was available this game. Flu game Warren, that's what I was calling when he got in the end zone for the touchdown. But they really looked at him as well. So it's like I said, it's had a lot to do with coaching, despite the referee situation for the Colts. The game just looks like they're all out of sync, honestly. The Colts just look out of sync at this point. But there were a few bright spots in the game. A few players that had a good game, so I give them credit where credit is due. Adewale had a good game. I give him credit. Grover Stewart, he had a pretty solid game. Cam Bynum had a pretty decent game. Mooney Ward was struggling this week, so that was rough. Mekhi Blackman did pretty decent. And on the offensive side, like I said, Alec Pierce was just the set in stone for the offense. Everybody else was just here and there. Josh Downs had a rough game. Daniel Jones was struggling as well. So, like I said, play calling had a lot to do with the offensive struggles. It just wasn't creative enough. I know you have a limited scenario or variety of plays with Daniel Jones and his injury, but you kind of knew that coming into the game. You knew that what defense was he was playing up against. The Houston Texans, defensive-minded coach, they've been adding heat all year, the number one defense. So, honestly, you're going to be stuck in a chess match regardless against this team. But being a little bit more creative probably would have worked. I mean, like I said, the Texans had a lot of penalties on their side, but there was a lot of missed calls on our side as well. But, you could have put that in our favor, honestly. But like I said, coaching had a lot to do with this situation and just players just being out of sync. We're going to go down the scoreboard, pretty much what happened in the scoring scenario. If you guys were interested in knowing, I do this every week moving forward. So in the first quarter, it started off with a field goal from Fairburn, who makes the score 3-0. Second quarter, Daniel Jones gets a touchdown to Alec Pierce and makes the score 6-3. Beautiful pass, by the way. And then the Texans answered and wind up getting a touchdown from Nick Chubb, which was 10-6. Third quarter, the Texans get the ball back, walking down the field, gets the field goal. The defense held them up. The score is 13-6. Daniel Jones answers with a touchdown to Tyler Warren, makes the score 13-13. In the fourth quarter, Nico Collins wind up just torturing the Colts defense. That makes the score 20-13, and then Bagley ends it with the score being 20-16 with the field goal. And the Texans just pretty much keeps control of the game in that scenario. The Colts have a lot of questions to do with special teams, including Michael Bagley. I think his time is up in Indianapolis, in my opinion. Leaving points off the board is never a no-go, especially if they're freebies. Like I said, once we score and you get an extra point field goal and you can't make that, yeah, kicker situations are very short-term in the NFL, and I think his time might be up in Indianapolis again. We need to go kicker shopping. Of course, we're missing our guy Spencer Schrader, but he might not be the same when he comes back, and that's another question to have, another conversation to have when we cross that bridge. But it is what it is. We do miss Mr. Schrader a lot. Money Bagley, that's what they used to call him. I don't think he's the answer at the kicker situation. So it's time to look for another kicker. The Texans had 364 total yards. It was a defensive showout, I will honestly say, for both sides of the ball. Both of these defenses definitely came to play this week. Despite what you guys may say with the scoreboard and everything, I think the Colts defense held their own. There was a lot of open plays, but I think, just due to the offense being inconsistent, again, there's another week where the Colts defense is out there longer than when they should be out there. So it is what it is at the end of the day. Kenny Moore struggled this week as well, so I forgot to mention that. The rushing game, no team can get off running the ball this week. Taylor and the Colts only had 86 rushing yards, and the Texans had 108. But passing yards was 256 for Stroud and them boys, and Daniel Jones almost had 200, but both teams averaged about 5 yards per play. So, yeah, there it is. I'm just saying these things for the stat warriors that like to read numbers. Daniel Jones had 201 yards, 1 sack, no interceptions, 2 touchdowns. Daniel Jones, 276. No, CJ Stroud, 276, no touchdowns, 1 interception, 2 sacks. The pass rush has been another week where they just aren't able to bring down the quarterback. This has been a norm all year for the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts have a thing about creating pressure but not actually bringing down the quarterback. CJ Stroud is another quarterback that can just add to the conversation that has moments where he could just walk around the field and just not be touched. There was on so many plays where the pass rush was there for Indianapolis, but they could just not bring down CJ Stroud. I never knew CJ Stroud would be that easily of a target to not, bring down. But it is what it is. He was mobile. He made plays happen out of nothing another week where quarterbacks escape the pocket and just do some crazy passes that look like this just on Madden. But like I said, it's another week where the pass rush just aren't able to get home. They're right there in front of the quarterback. There were so many plays you can't even hand count where the pass rush is right in front of the quarterback and they just cannot sack him. I don't understand the scenario with the defensive line. It's unfortunate, but that just goes into the conversation of the Colts need another pass rush. Could wish we could have got somebody during the trade deadline, but it is what it is. The Colts trust the pass rush, and this is what we get. So it's another week where that happens. Another scenario for the defense, like I said, the secondary, they were pretty decent all week, I would say. This game, it had rough patches, but honestly, like I said, the offense had a lot to do with why the Colts couldn't get this job done. The Colts defense did all they could, so I can't really put blame on them. Of course, they could have been better, but I can't put full blame on the Colts defense. The offense is the legit reason why we lost this game. It is what it is at the end of the day. I think some players could have been better on defense, but that's just another topic for another week. But the answer for this game and this Colts loss will be the Colts offense and the officiating. What they're going to do next week, I have no idea. This team is completely unpredictable now. If you would have asked me what the Colts is going to do right now in week 4, if this was week 4 going into week 5, I was like, oh, we're dog walking whoever we play next week. But this team has just underperformed for about 4 weeks now. And hopefully they can find the groove of what they're used to doing. Maybe they can remember that Jonathan Taylor's in the backfield and just try to feed him more. But like I said, it is what it is. I think the offense creativity just hasn't been there. And hopefully they can find their nick and trying to, implement more plays moving forward and, be better prepared coming out the week. But, it is what it is. Like I said, they still had a chance to win, but they're just going to pull it out. But other than that, that's all I got for you guys. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Stay safe. Have a good week. We'll be back for another game in another week. But until next time, go Colts still to the end of the day, and you guys have a good one. Signing out.